Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Ben here, you're watching Time on Feet. In today's video I'm going to reflect on how the summer of running has gone, and I'm also going to be thinking about my races coming up over autumn winter, including possibly my biggest challenge yet, but I'll go into that in more detail a bit later on. So I'm currently camping in Sussex at the moment near a village called Chailey, and it's given me a chance over the last couple of days to explore some new trails. So today I ran the route that I'm running this morning, although slightly longer version actually. So today's Sunday, a 4-mile easy run, and in fact I'm going just through a sweet corn field at the moment. It looks like some of these sweet corns are ready to pick, but when I came here on the way out, so I'm doing an up and back today, it's getting pretty wet because, as you can see, there's kind of leaves hanging out over the path, and they are all wet from the recent rain we've had. But luckily, whilst we've been camping, there hasn't been too much of a storm. It's something we were worrying about this weekend in case we were going to get completely waterlogged in our tents, but it's been great. Really nice campsite as well. There's alpacas and a rather angry goose there, who luckily hasn't had his wrath with us yet. But yeah, it's been a really good weekend overall. So firstly, just to think about how the summer of running has gone. Well, it's been a bit different than I expected because, as some of you know, I mentioned that about 6 or 7 weeks ago I had a bit of a knee niggle from playing football. So instead of kind of the big miles base building that I was planning during the summer, instead I've been taking it much more cautiously and doing some physio exercises, and then, you know, gradually building up the miles again, not doing any intervals or track work, but just focusing on easy runs. I've still really enjoyed it, so I've loved getting out there and exploring new trails, like when I was in Wales along the Offers Dyke Trail, but you know, it just hasn't been quite the summer of running that I expected. And I know I mentioned a few weeks ago on the channel that I was thinking of doing some night running, and in particular a solo night marathon. That's definitely still on the cards, but you know, I thought whilst my knee was recovering that actually running in the dark, when I'm not too used to running in the dark, probably wouldn't be a good idea for the moment, but certainly something I'm going to do over the next couple of months. So today I'm running in my Brooks Caldera 5s, and my last video on the channel was a review of these after 1,000 kilometers. So I'm still, as you can see, wearing them, even though they have some, you know, signs of obvious wear on them, but I'm going to see how long I can get out of them. But if you want to have a look at how I reviewed them and what my thoughts were on them, then do check out that video on the Brooks Caldera 5s. I did post up a poll as well, so because the channel has now reached over 500 subscribers, it means that I can have a community page, and there I can post up polls or, you know, photos or ideas about new videos, things like this. So if you want to see that, then do click subscribe and you'll get community page notifications. But as I was saying, the last thing I did on there was a poll, and that was asking, you know, what's the maximum distance that people have had a pair of shoes last for? And it's quite interesting because actually the most commonly ticked answer, I'll put it up on the screen so you can see the results, but out of 21 votes, you know, this isn't completely representative of the wider YouTube running community, but out of 21 votes, the most common answer was the lowest distance that I put up there. So it's an interesting one. You know, let me know in the comments, is there a certain distance that you expect to get out of a pair of running shoes? You know, what is it, 300, 400 kilometers beyond? I know some people would expect it to go, you know, maybe into 1,000 and even more, but let me know, you know, if you buy a pair of shoes, do you have a particular idea for, you know, how long they should be lasting? Or does it depend? You know, maybe you expect something different from a road shoe than you do a trail shoe. So do let me know your thoughts in the comments. So we'll come on to think about the races I've got planned for autumn, winter. And I just wanted to say firstly a massive thanks to everyone who gave suggestions for possible races I could do in a video I put up about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Some really good suggestions there. There are some suggestions I just wanted to mention, even though I'm not planning on doing them, but I just thought they were really good suggestions, and I would like to have these on the back burner as ideas for races or types of races in future. The first mention I wanted to give was an idea that came from Olga, who runs the Olga's British Fells YouTube channel. Do check out her channel if you haven't already. It's got lots of fell running, as the name of her channel suggests. Also just various adventures around trails, exploration, all of these things. So do have a look. But Olga suggested, and maybe unsurprisingly given the name of her channel, to do a fell run. And I've never done a fell race before. But she says here that, you know, they are often cheaper. So that's a real positive, particularly as I'm thinking at the moment about how much races cost and how I need to kind of be selective about doing races, because it can add up. So yeah, one positive, they're cheaper. Also, you know, more challenging than some of the other races I've done in terms of being a bit more technical, more elevation. And I think they're often smaller as well, so you get a different kind of community around fell running. So that's definitely something I'd like to do in the future. The reason I'm not going to do it this season is because we don't really have too many fells around East Sussex where I live, so it would be difficult to get in the training, but it's definitely something I'd like to do in the future. So that was one really good suggestion. Other suggestions that also came up: Centurion Wendover Woods, that was also a very popular suggestion. So a 50 miler, it's a 10-mile loop that is pretty challenging. It's very hilly, but a lot of people who follow the channel I can see, like George Mora, for instance, or Jorge Mora, apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, let me know if I am. But he suggested that and said, yeah, it might be worth checking that out. I decided not to sign up for it in the end because it's a little way from me, so it means that I'd probably have to drive down the night before and therefore have to stay in a hotel as well. It's also a Sunday race, and I typically prefer Saturday races so I can recover on Sunday, and because of the nature of my work, I often have to do work to prepare on Sunday evenings too. So in the end I didn't go for that, though it looked a really, really good race. Other suggestions, just going to pick out one or two here. What else have we got? Let's have a look. Yeah, Ian from I Run Daily. So I Run Daily YouTube channel. Do check out his channel as well if you haven't already. He's run a number of different ultra events. And he did some obstacle events recently too. So do have a look at what his channel has to offer. Really, really varied there in terms of, you know, the running. He's into the cycling too, and then also the kind of obstacle races. But he suggested the Thames Trot, 78k but flat but tough, he clarifies as well. And I think that was because of there's some parts that are more muddy, so it gets a bit more tricky to run those parts. But do correct me in if I'm wrong. That, again, I've decided not to do in the end. Again, one I'd think about maybe for the future, but I thought not this time because I'd like to do something with a bit more elevation. So the races I've gone for, so coming up in my race calendar, I've got firstly the sheer 42k, which has been postponed. Oh, in fact, no, that's not my first race, that's my second race. My first race I'm going to be doing is the Bates Green Gallop. Almost forgot the name there. Bates Green Gallop, which is a 3.5 mile loop, and you do as many loops as you can in 6 hours. So that's happening in Sussex. I've never done an event like it. It's kind of backyard ultra style, but obviously not with the idea of people going until they drop. There's a kind of 6 hour limit. So that's going to be a really interesting event to do. I'm not sure how I'm going to play it yet. Like, you know, do I want to do as many loops as possible? Do I want to use it as maybe a time trial for a 50k? Not sure, but that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So that's going to be, I'm just looking at the date here, 18th of September. So Sunday, 18th of September. The week after that, I'll have the sheer 42k. Which has been moved from the summer after the heat wave. It was postponed due to the heat. So, you know, those races are very close to each other, so I kind of have to think about what I want to do with the Bates Green Gallop, the first one, the 6 hour time trial. You know, probably not to race it too hard if I want to go fairly pacey for the sheer 42k, but I'll see. I might run the sheer 42k just to enjoy it and use Bates Green Gallop as more of a time trial to see what I can do, but I'll think about that a bit nearer the time. So my big goal race for the autumn-winter season of running is going to be the Copthorne races, and it's a smaller race setup, so it's not going to be as big as the Centurion North Downs Way 50 I did back in May. It's organised by Canary Trail Events, and it's happening over towards Dorking. There's a 10-mile looped course, and they offer a number of different options. You can do a 50k, you can do a 50 miler, you can do a 100k, and you can do a 100 miler. So I'm going for the 50 mile option, which you might think, well, I've done a 50 miler before. That might not necessarily be a whole different challenge, but I think what is going to make the difference is the elevation. In the 50 miler that I did back in May, the elevation was about 5,600 feet. For the Copthorne Copthorne 50 miler that I'm doing, it's going to be double that. So I think it's going to be a real challenge in terms of elevation, because I know through my training and races that I've done, hills change everything. They make it completely different. Like if you compare like a 50k that's flat to a very hilly 50k, you know, that can be hours difference. The strain is very different in your body. So that's going to be the challenge. I thought I would try a hillier 50 miler rather than, you know, trying to do maybe a 50 miler with the same elevation and going for a PB or anything like this, just because I wanted a new challenge. I see running as kind of a set of skills, and one of the skills that I want to develop much more is to be able to deal with, you know, a decent amount of elevation, and maybe to start using some poles. I can see if I want poles in my training, and indeed to race too. So that's going to be my challenge coming up in, how long have we got now? It's about 3 months time. So those are my races, so 3 in total, 2 in September, got the Bates Green Gallop, followed by the Sheer 42k, and then in November, the big one, the goal race, is going to be the Copthorne 50 miler. So do subscribe if you'd like to tune in for my training for those, and hope you enjoyed the video, enjoy your running, and I'll see you all in the next one.